Hey fam, it's the Better Man podcast. We are helping men win. Speaking of winning, I want to talk about our two partners, our two sponsors that help make this show go. One is Aroga Drive. When I'm looking for day in and day out energy to keep this motor going, Aroga Drive is the one. Check them out at arogadrive.com/BetterMan. It's in the show notes. And then also our guys at Art of Homage, engaging culture in a winsome, and I'm going to tell you, a strong vibe.
I think sometimes the John Tysons of the world and sometimes the Don Mannings of the world say, come on, be all in. And we think that it's going to be so hard, and it is. But what happens is the hard becomes easy over time when you do the right thing.
Fam, welcome back to the Better Man podcast. Come on. As always, I'm here with my guy, my brother D. How we living, baby?
We living good, man. Today I'm just excited. I feel good. Got a great guest on the show today. My man Don Manning.
Hey, Don is in studio with us. We're going to get to him in a minute.
Yeah.
He got a fresh cut. You look good too, bro. You been losing a little weight?
Oh, man, I just been on the iron in the morning.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Just getting to the gym.
I've
Trying to keep
been
it
trying
fresh.
to lose a little weight. I've been back on that iron.
You own it, bro.
Come on.
Chris hit 225 the other day. 8 reps by itself.
Come on.
Only 1% of the men in the world can do that.
Wow. Remind me to tell you a story about that in a minute. But anyway,
About 225?
No, not about 225. Just about, I think there's a work. Anyway, introduce me and then we'll go.
Don is leading the show. I'm just letting y'all know.
Yeah. Welcome, Don Manning.
Thank you.
Of the Crazy Cool family.
The Crazy Cool, man, in all seriousness, one of the best ministries. If you ask me, Harp, in the last 3-5 years, what's top 1, 2, 3 ministries you've been introduced to? Crazy Cool Family and Don Manning would be in the top 3.
Man, that's thank you so much.
Yeah.
That humbles me. Thank you.
Don, can I jump and say something?
Yeah.
I think Chris can say that with such confidence, not just because Don is sitting here, but we've heard all the stories about their family and how all of his children are flourishing.
That's it.
And how they're serving the Lord. So this is just not something that we're saying, but something we've seen, as we've established a relationship with Don.
Well, what happened, honestly, it was out of desperation because I got 7 kids. And so literally, this really happened. This is not, no kidding, is that I had 4 girls. At one time, it was me and 5 women in my house. I have 4 girls and 3 boys. So you think about it, and any man who doesn't have empathy for me right now, thinking about me and 5 women in my house doesn't have a heart. I mean, it's like the Tin Man.
Or he got all girls and never had boys.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so I had all these 5 girls in my house, and I could see that we were going to have a larger family. And I said, you know what? If I mess this up, my life is going to be really hard. Because I saw I saw where, people had 3 kids and one of them was messed up or 2 of them and all the pain. I'm like, if that happens to me, my life, and I said, I got to figure this out.
Because your odds are greater.
Yes. And I said, and all the statistics are out there that 70% of kids that leave in Christian homes are not following the Lord. I'm like, that's like 5 of my kids, And so, I said, dude, I'm serious. I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And the other thing the Lord put on my heart is like, I really found out that I love my kids. I mean, we all do. I mean, it's not uncommon, but I was just like, I'm going, and I flipped it, and I said, dude, I'm going 7 for 7. I said, if I'm going 7 for 7. I remember thinking that as a younger dad, probably 15, 20 years ago, and saying, because my youngest is 18 now, and I said, I'm going 7 for 7, and there's 2 things I'm going to do. One is I'm going to be a learner, because I don't know what I'm doing. That's what 5 women did to me, is it said, I have no idea what I'm trying hard, and I don't know what I'm doing. And women will do that to you, and especially 5 of them. And so, but I said, I don't know what I'm doing, so I need to become a learner, and then I'm going to give it all I got. And I said, I told the Lord, I remember telling the Lord that, I'm probably, 40 at the time. And I said, and then I'm about to turn 60 next month. And I said, I'm going to do two things for you, God. I'm going to learn all I can about family and about the Lord, about discipleship. And I'm going to give it all I got. And if that doesn't work, Lord, it's on you.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to put everything I can into this. And really learning that, realizing, and I think for men that a lot of times we think we know how to be a dad, but really we don't. And so it was a lifelong, and a learning journey. And so it worked, it really did, and so, and I think that now I really feel like that every dad can win. Every family can win, that we should all go 3 for 3 or 5 for 5. And not that there's a formula and not that it's a guarantee, but if we'll do certain things, we will, according to God's word and according to God's way, we will have a much better chance of success.
And we're going. First of all, Donna knocked down shooter, 7 for 7, and I love that. And we're going to talk about today on today's show, what are some of those things that we can do, and I love how you frame that. It doesn't guarantee success because ultimately God is sovereign over all things. But what it does do is can help ensure or at least put us closer to success.
Yeah.
And your point about God, I'm gonna go all in and trust you with the rest.
Yeah.
Right. I think fatherhood is one of those things that you can't do halfway.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
have to be willing to go all in. I remember talking to John Tyson. I said, John, how? He wrote Primal Path and he did this whole father-son thing. And I said, man, give me something. Give me one nugget. And he said, Chris, I had to go all in. He said, I said no to almost everything but my family, and it still wasn't enough. He said, I should have said no to even more. Right? He said, you got to go all in. And same thing you just said. We can't blame God unless we're willing to do our part.
Yeah.
Right. And even then,
Still can't blame
him. Don't mishear me on that. But there are so many people, and I think particularly so many of us dads, so many of us men that aren't willing to go all in. So Don, when you say go all in, what are you talking about? What are we going all in on?
Okay. So at the end of Matthew 10, Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically what he says there is, do it my way.
Yeah.
Be willing to do the hard things. Okay. Yeah. However, at the end of Matthew 11, also he says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Come on.
Okay. So what happens is, I think sometimes the John Tysons of the world and sometimes the Don Mannings of the world say, come on, be all in. And we think that it's going to be so hard, and it is. But what happens is the hard becomes easy.
Let's go.
Over time when you do the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So now what I tell people now is, and my kids are not perfect. They do love the Lord. They love each other. They love us. I'm not gonna qualify and say, oh yeah, we've got all these issues and make up issues we don't have. It's not true. I mean, they are healthy, but they're not perfect anyway. There's things I want to see in my youngest boy or my oldest boy or my, the marriages my daughters have or whatever. But it does. I tell people all the time, I got 7 kids and family's the easiest thing I do every day. Why? Because, I know, I'll give you another example. So right now we're doing a lot of marketing with our ministry, Crazy Cool Family. I've never been a marketer before. Yeah. It's a fairly new ministry. It's a few years old or whatever. And I tell people all the time, I said, I feel like I want to shoot a 3-pointer, but I'm shooting a 2-handed set shot right now because, and so marketing is hard for me with my ministry because I don't know what I'm doing and I haven't practiced it. But you know what? Family is not hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I've practiced it for 20 years. I've established the relationships flow. So dads, I want to encourage you. Yeah, it's hard work.
Yeah.
But it gets easier when you implement the Christian life in general.
Yeah.
And then when you implement the things we teach you how to do, the hard work of relationships, the hard work of building culture in your home, the things that we teach you, family becomes easier because it's a heck of a lot easier to have a kid, a 16-year-old kid that you have a good relationship with and you know and love, versus a 16-year-old daughter who's sleeping around and there's no relationship and connection. There's fights and there's distrust and everything else.
Yeah.
When you got that relationship with that 16-year-old daughter and she loves the Lord and you have a connection and trust, man, that's easy.
Bro,
And it's fun.
What you described. I'm a Lord of the Rings nerd.
Yes.
I love Lord of the Rings. Matter of fact, for Father's Day, the Two Towers, they re-released it in theaters, and me and my boys went and watched it together. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, I love
4
that.
hours in a movie theater. Boy, chocolate chip cookies, popcorn everywhere. It was amazing. But there's this part in Lord of the Rings, especially in the book, where Sam and Frodo get to Mordor. They get to where they've got to throw the ring basically into the mountain, and Frodo can't walk. He can't walk. He looks at Sam and basically says, "Leave me, I'm dead. The journey's over." Right? And Sam looks at Frodo and says, "Listen, even if I have to carry you and the ring all the way up the mountain, I'm going to do it." And Sam thought to himself, "Man, I don't know how I'm going to do it because I'm weak. I haven't ate. I'm beat up." Mm-hmm. But then Tolkien, and the only way Tolkien can do it, and you're going to have to go read it, but he talks about Sam bending down and picking Frodo and the ring up and putting him on his back, and but he was unexpectedly light. And it was the joy and the honor of carrying his best friend, his brother.
Yeah.
The rest of the way.
Wow.
That what he thought was going to be heavy, he said there was a lightness about him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you just described. That's what came to mind. Man, yes, being a father is heavy. Yes, being a husband is heavy. Yes, being a dad is hard and time consuming and all the things, but there is a joy and a happiness, right? I love how Eugene Peterson translates Matthew 11. He says, all who are weary and tired, come to me and I will make you light and free.
Yeah.
That's good.
Light and free, bro. That's what I want to be.
And in that passage, doesn't he talk about something about the unhurried rhythms or something like that? There's a phrase in there that reminded me of that. And I think that's what, we think the Christian life in general, but being a dad in particular, we think it's going to be so hard and we're never going to be able to do anything, but actually it becomes that joy.
Yeah.
Man, I'm a granddad now, pops. And
Come
so
on.
I got 8 grandkids. And so, get to relive this with got 8 grandkids from 5 to 3 months, I think. And, but just getting to relive that and seeing the joy of seeing that little 3-year-old and getting to, I'm not so worried about it anymore, but getting to re-see it. Man, parenting really is a joy.
Yeah, he said, Pops, D, what's your granddad name going to be? Have you thought about it?
Oh, it's going to be Pops.
Oh, yeah?
You
There
gonna
we
be
go.
Pops?
There
Yeah,
we
he's
go.
going to be
Come
Pops.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the Wayans Brothers show, the Wayans Brothers.
Well, who you talking to?
Hey, Chris Harper.
Come on.
But the character of their dad, his name was Pops.
Yeah,
And so I just love, it's just a simple, I'm crazy, I'm going to be fun.
Yeah.
So Pops is just simple.
Well,
name.
and why don't we do that as a dad?
Right.
We think that so often.
Hold on. I think I'm going to have my grandkids call me grandfather.
Grandfather.
Just be old English, serious,
Right,
right?
yeah.
Grandfather.
Grandfather.
That's too much
Grandfather.
pressure.
May we come into the study, grandfather?
That's it. That's it. Don, tell us, man. You've got a couple of studies that I want to highlight and show our viewers, tell our listeners. One is called Creating Family Culture. It's a 6-week experience, however you want to chop it up, but it's creating family culture. Give us an overview and we have tens of thousands of listeners and viewers. Tell us some of the basic building blocks to building family culture in our home. Like give us some stuff we can walk away with today.
Well, so, guys, what I did, I remember being this young, we started having some success in our home. It was a rocky road, but I mean, overall it was, and another thing we tell dads a lot is, think about success in your home. It's not a linear path. There's a lot of ups and downs, but if you do certain things, you're going to have a greater chance of success. And so we started seeing those things happen. And I was studying God's word. The Bible doesn't talk about family a lot specifically. Family in God's mind, I believe, is more of an extension of who you are. So one of the things we'll say is that, the best thing you can do for your family is to present them the healthiest version of you.
Come on.
It's not about, so often parenting, we're focused on our kids. My life is my message. And so when my life is right, my message will be right to my family. And so, another thing we'll say about that is the best fathers and mothers are first sons and daughters of the King. That you're not a father till you're a son. If I'm an angry person, I'm going to be an angry father. If I'm a forgiving person, I'm going to be a forgiving father. So, so backing up in the story, so I start to, study the Bible, realize I've got to make some clarity for people and for myself and for people, as well as just reading all the different authors that are out there. This is for the internet. I'm going to conferences, I'm reading books and doing everything we can. My wife and I are, and I'm like, man, this is confusing. I said, I'm a dude. Somebody point me in the right direction. Just give me a playbook.
Right.
And so over time, and actually this started in our church. I've been at the same church for over 30 years. I'm a huge believer of the local church, and a lot of your listeners are in local churches.
Yep.
Camp there. Our local church done a great job for us, and we just started giving back at our local church by teaching younger parents. And I said, man, I got to hone this message to where anybody can do it. And so I want to be able to teach family in 5 minutes, but it's going to take them 5 years to learn it. Took me 25 years, but I want to hone it where people can learn it a lot sooner than I can. And I came up with 3 things that are 3 commitments of a crazy cool family. And that is to pursue God. And that's where, the best fathers and mothers are first sons and daughters of the King. Pursue God, build relationships, create culture. If you can remember those 6 words, you can build a crazy cool family. And the first thing we elevate and that we pursue God first, and then we build relationships. So the third deal is create culture.
Yeah.
But culture, that's why I'm going to go down the house, if you will. So in our books, we have a crazy cool family house, and in the middle of the house is what we call our family dashboard. So there's 5 types of relationships in your home. Why do we focus on relationships? Because that's what Jesus said. When they asked him in Matthew 22, they said, Jesus, what's the most important commandment? He didn't say obey, he said love. And so, he could have said there's 600 commandments, he could have picked anything, but he said love. He said relationships, the most important thing. And then the strength of your family will be determined by the strength of your family relationships. So that first guide is building family relationships. And we talk about a family dashboard. It was the biggest revelation I ever got in parenting, is I realized that I parented to the relationship instead of the behavior. And then if I got the relationship right, the behavior would be the result.
Come on.
If I'm connected to my kid and I know them, I'm going to know how to parent them and inspire them to do their best. If my kid loves Jesus, they're going to be the easiest kid to parent because they're going to make wiser decisions.
Don,
go ahead.
Just give us an example of what you mean, parent to the relationship.
So, for example, let's say my kid is making bad grades. Okay? So what I could do as a parent, I go in and say, why in the heck are you making bad grades? You got to get better than that. You got to, I want to get on to them. I'm going to lecture them. I'm going to do all that. Instead, making bad grades is a relational issue. There's a why behind it. So I may look at that child and say, what's going on? Why are they making bad? Hey, son or daughter, what's going on? What is it that's helping? I don't like that teacher. Okay, let's figure out why the teacher is, what's going on with the teacher. Let's explain, let's connect. And then how can I motivate that child to make a good grade on their own versus me being on them all the time? When I'm on them all the time, there's going to be a relationship disconnect. Maybe they hide their grades. Maybe they don't trust. So I'm going to go in and build trust in the relationship. I'm going to find the why, and I'm going to see if together, think about like this, and if we're on a podcast, so you can't really, some people can't see, but if you're watching it, you can see, okay? So, but let me describe it as I do the podcast. So think about your kid being here, and what do we want them to do? We want to connect with them, and we want them to see God. So God's over here. So if you're picturing this on the audio, kids in my right hand, God's in my left hand. But what as parents we do a lot of times is we come in front of God. So picture, and then we gripe at them and we say, hey, you got to do these things. And instead and the kid literally, we shield that kid from seeing God.
Oh, wow.
You see what I'm saying? Because all they can see, and what do when we yell and scream at them? They just want to get away.
They shut down.
I don't want to see God. I don't want to see my parent. I want to see somebody over here. So instead, what if, relationally, to answer your question, we come over here? And now together we come beside them, and let's go see God together.
Let's go.
Let's see what's happening. And now, in the past, I shielded God from them. I shielded them from seeing God. Now I'm going to come and we're going to go, you know what? Where is God in this? Where do we want to, how can we help you be your best? How can we, I'll give you another example. I use this, my boy, one of my boys, I will let them for terms of innocence and not condemning he's a football player, which eliminates one of my boys. But anyway, so now I'm down to two. Anyway, so he and I wanted him to be a hard worker in football. Okay, this is an example of relationship versus control versus lecturing versus thing. So and I wanted him to have a great high school football experience. I didn't feel like he was going to be a college player, but I wanted him to have a great high school football experience. So I said, got him a trainer. And I said, hey, we're going to work with this trainer, and we're going to work hard and learn to be the best football player you can be. But my concern was I was going to spend all this money, and he wasn't going to work at it. Okay? Make sense?
You good?
Yeah.
So I go to him, and I say, and so one day we're driving to the trainer, and the trainer's top notch, and I've got a big check I'm going to bring for the trainer, and so again I'm relationally focused, so I want to be inspiring, and so I say, hey, pull out that envelope and look at that check as we're driving to the deal, and he says, pulls it out, looks at it, and he goes, wow, Dad, that's a big check. Because I was paying for several sessions. It wasn't just one session. I was paying for like a whole semester.
You got Tom Brady training us.
Hey, it was close. It was close. And so
I know that check was big.
It was actually Donald Driver. And,
wow.
And Donald lives in Flower Mound, and so anyway, and Donald Driver was going to train him to be a quarterback. And so I just gave the kid away, but anyway, to the kid anyway. But so anyway, but I'm terrible at keeping secrets anyway. But anyway, so I said, hey, look at that check, and he looks at it and he says, that's a big check. He goes, I said, you know what? You're worth it.
Come on.
You're worth every bit of that. I believe in you, and I'm going to call out who he is versus telling him what he's not. Because the relationship is key, and helping him become who he is key. So I said, you know what? You're worth that, and I'm so happy to write that check for you. I said, and it is a sacrifice. It's a big deal. I said, now, let me ask you a question. So rather than tell him what to do, now I'm going to ask him a question. Hey, what's your part in that? Well, I need to work hard. Huh. Imagine that. I didn't know that. It's like God calling in the garden, hey, Adam and Eve, where are you? He knew where they were. But I mean, we don't need to tell them what to do. They know. I said, okay, are you willing to step up? And I said, I don't care if I write that check or not, honestly. I mean, if we want to do something else, we don't want to be a football player, but if we're going to be a football player, I want to write the check, and I want you to work hard to get to be your best.
And that's, do you know how many times I've told my kids, you're going to this because I've paid for it? I mean, I bet I've said that a dozen times.
Probably more than a dozen.
Well, and what's wild about it is,
yeah,
at first it didn't work, and a lot of times this happens relationally. At first, I didn't have an impact, And I was like, oh, that screwed this up, but you know what? A few months later, if you look at today, he's a hardworking dude. And he has done what it takes. And, actually, since I've already given the kid away, tonight he starts at linebacker for his high school in senior year,
Come on.
And so, and he's gained 30 pounds. And I mean, he's the best football player he can be. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to go to college and be a D1 athlete. I just read your deal about Emmitt Smith and Dion and all that. That's fascinating. I didn't know that story. But that's okay. I'm sorry. I get off passionate about this stuff, but I mean, relationships are everything. How we approach, that's what I'm talking about approaching from a relational standpoint. You're trying to connect. You listen, like in the culture book, we talk about being an encouraging dad, being an inspiring dad versus a critical dad, being a listening dad versus a lecturing dad.
Come on.
And that's what I found is that we started parenting to the relationship versus the protection versus the control versus all those things. We started parenting to the connection, and our kids responded. First, it was our girls, and they responded very well. They respond. We treated them like people. We treated them like, what do you think about it? How do you feel like you should approach this? So often they know the answer.
But just inviting them into the process, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times my son has asked me, well, how much did this cost? Well, don't worry about it, right? Or again, I paid for these training lessons, so you're going to be early, right? And I'm not teaching him anything. I'm just telling him things. But to your point, letting your son see the check and then telling him that he's worth every
Well, and
dime,
even then,
man. I love that.
You're
bro.
doing things with the best intentions for your son. And so even then, it doesn't mean that, and a lot of times dads get mad at me and they say, well, you're taking away my ability to discipline him. You're saying, no. I'm saying, no. Okay, so let's say, for example, that you still want that child to be on time, and he's still going to be. The discipline hammer is always in your pocket.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but the trouble is what we do as dads, back to your relational deal, is, and again, you can't see this if you're on the podcast, but think about if I'm a carpenter and I know how to operate a hammer, okay, then chances are I'm going to tap that nail and I'm going to hit it one more time, and that nail's going to be in the board in the exact right
Come on,
spot.
2 drives. That's it.
But I can't do that. Now I'm not a carpenter.
You should have kept it to yourself because you on a roll.
Mine is, well, everybody's got issues.
John said, I'm going to hit it 7 times.
Yeah, Will Rogers said, we're all ignorant. It's just on different subjects, right?
Yes,
but if you're a good carpenter, you know how to, and I feel like as dads, we need to learn to be a master carpenter with our discipline. And yet what we do is, like I would be with that nail, we're hammering all over the board and we're missing it, and that nail's bending, and we got to go get another nail out. And the trouble is with our kids, we don't have another nail. We got one, and we get one chance at it. And so what we do relationally is we teach them how to, you start out with a relationship and you try to get them, and then if not, the discipline hammer is always in your pocket, and you can say, you know what, we're going to be on time for this because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And we're, we would say, we had a family name. We said, you're a Manning. Mannings are on time. Mannings treat people well. Mannings do this because, that's another thing we teach you in that culture book about, how do you build your name of your family? You're a child of God.
Yeah. Don, was there a specific instance when this came to you? Hey, we have got to do different. We've got to raise them to the relationship. Was there something?
I think there were thousands of instances.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and instances where I felt inadequate, and I think.
And you knew it wasn't working.
Yeah, and I could just see that there was, we were working hard at some of the wrong things. And I needed to learn how to work at the right things.
Yeah.
And so, but I'll give you an example that was one of those. So, my youngest daughter was probably 10, and she was in a church performance, like they did a dance routine and stuff at the church, and choir and stuff. And so, and I want to become. I can see that my intensity my criticism, my lecturing is distancing my daughters from me. I start to see that. And so I'm going to become a more encouraging dad. So she comes off the performance and I said, Mackenzie, good job. And I think I've done a good job with that. And right behind me, this buddy of mine comes back and the guy is actually, Tim Hawkins, the comedian, is actually his brother, Todd, and who's both those guys are good friends of mine. And Todd is a very talented guy too. He's the guy that was Tim's manager and made Tim into who all he was. And so Todd comes behind me and he goes, Mackenzie, that was amazing. Oh my goodness, you guys were so fluid up there and everybody was together and you guys just knocked it out of the park. And I was like, I'm a loser. Because, I'm over going, good job,
Golf clap.
Yeah, maybe I gave her a little clap or whatever. But that was another deal. There's just a series of events that said, I need to be different as a dad if I'm going to walk like Jesus did. Our pastor talks about, we're doing a series right now, and he talks about a different way. He said, if we're going to do what Jesus did, we got to do what Jesus did. Meaning that if we're going to, in the moment, there's so many parenting moments that we have.
Yeah.
And we have to decide what to do. If we're not trained, if we don't do what Jesus did with the learning and the disciplines and things like that, then we can't be prepared to do what Jesus did in the moment.
It's so good.
And
man.
so back to this, it's like, so pursue God, build relationships. 5 types of relationships in your home: parent to God, marriage, parent to kid, kid to kid, kid to God. We show you how to do all those well. Okay, in one workbook. And in the culture, pursue God, build relationships, create culture. I just taught you how to do family in 5 minutes. Culture's the how. Think of culture like a greenhouse. That when you want to, that's how we nurture those relationships, we build them. The culture is how your home feels. It's not just when you're in the house, it's when you're in the car, it's when you're on vacation, it's when you're at church together. It's how your home feels and the atmosphere of your home. And so we show you how, and if you build that culture right, if your kids feel safe when they come in, Suzanne talks about, my wife, that basically all we do at home is we wash the world off of them, so we send them out refreshed every day.
Come on.
Okay, think about the difference in the homes when people come into certain homes. Hey, dads out there, think about your home. How would your kids describe the culture, the atmosphere? How is it? Is it a place? Is it a haven that they come into and they're like, I can't wait to get home?
Yeah.
So that I can get filled up. I mean, nobody else is going to fight for your kid. Nobody else is going to be your kid's cheerleader but you.
Come on.
They're beating them up out there in the world, telling them they're not big enough, they're not strong enough, they're not smart enough, they're not fast enough, they're not whatever it is, and they're not pretty enough. And social media does it times 1,000.
Yeah.
This home's got to be a place where they get encouraged. I'm not passionate about this at all, but that we got to be encouraged. We got to be our kids' biggest cheerleader because they got to know who they are when they go out there, so they can go fight.
Don, that's exactly why we had you on the show today, man, because of your passion, because of your energy. I know Dee and I both have been blessed by your material, by your content, and we're going to have you back on just because you have shown so much to share. But I want to tell our listeners and our viewers to see. Pass that over to Dee, will you? I want Dee to hold that one up. I'm gonna hold this one up. If what you've heard today has whetted your appetite, which it should have. If not, you're dead. You're not listening. You're not paying attention. Man, creating family culture, phenomenal. I know Dee and I have both read this.
And building family relationships. And this is probably something that we could all benefit from.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What I'm going to do in the show notes, you'll see a link. I'll give it to you. That's a special offer. And so what happens is that it's available on Amazon, but they can get it from me cheaper.
Come on.
And so because I just get I ship it directly.
Yeah.
And so, here's what I would challenge men to do. You and your wife get a copy for you and a copy for your wife, because And this is a great way to lead your home, and your wife will love it. You're taking an interest in your family. And so men, when you take an interest in your family, your wife will want to have sex with you more. She'll want to talk to you more.
Look, somebody just bought 72 copies.
Exactly.
Right,
but so both, and then
you heard it right here.
Each session, they're interactive. You get to write in it. And there's actually a whole video course behind each one that's free. But what happens is you do it by yourselves, you and your wife, and then you come together and talk about it. Okay, now you're facilitating discussions on the values of your home. So last thing I'll tell men is when you talking about values instead of methods, how many times do we argue about how we parent?
All the time.
All the time.
Okay, and my wife always says first 10 years of our marriage, she wanted to turn me into a hairy woman because she wanted me to think like her, and I wanted to systematize her.
Yeah.
Instead, we now talk, and we started then talking about the values.
That's right.
What's important? Well, now I can, instead of me turning her into me, I turn her into the best version of her.
Yeah.
Okay? Very different. But this is what this workbook helps you facilitate is you go through it together, each separately, talk about it together, facilitate the date nights, do it at your own pace. There's 12 sessions in all and 2 workbooks.
Yeah.
Do it once a month, do it once a week, whatever you want to do. I promise you, dads, you're going to step in and lead better, and you're going to see some success, and it's going to challenge the way you think about how you do family.
Yeah, you're going to start building a crazy, cool family. Check out all the links. Don's cheaper than Amazon. You heard it here. Hit the link in the show notes. Don, thank you so much for being on the show today, brother. We're going to have you back in the near future, man.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
See you, boss.
Thank you, Don.
Do you have questions? Submit your questions to the BetterMan podcast team for an upcoming episode. Email info@betterman.com. Subject line, podcast question.